Ken, as somebody who in the past has had their own struggle with weight loss, what would you say to somebody who comes up to you today and says, I've tried everything. This weight is just stuck on me. I've tried all the popular diets. I've tried fasting. I've tried it all, but I feel stuck. I feel like it's just me. What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is you are not alone. You are in very, very good company, and you're in numerous company. The vast majority of us have been completely misled when it comes to what actually is a proper human diet. And I hope we can dive deep into that subject. But I myself was deluded as a doctor who did get some nutrition training in medical school. I had no idea at the time when I became severely obese. Back then we called it morbidly obese. I became pre-diabetic. Had all these chronic medical problems, and I thought that was just a product of getting old. I was in my mid-30s. But I felt very old at that time. And so I would say, yes, I know that you have tried many of the popular diets. And I would also like to add that I know you've diligently tried those diets. I no longer accuse people of, well, you just half-assed did this. You're sitting on the couch eating Doritos. You're not really trying. In the past, I would have accused you of that because I thought that losing weight, getting healthy was just a product of move more, eat less. And that didn't work for me. And I think that we're seeing that it doesn't truly work for millions of people around the world in modern societies. It just doesn't work for the vast majority of us. So I would say, I know that you've tried. I know that you've really put in the effort, but you were given the wrong information. And most people, when they hear that, are relieved. Like, oh my God, I thought I was just a lazy glutton. Maybe there is hope. And yes, my answer is 100% there is hope. When you discover where you fall on the proper human diet spectrum, all of a sudden, things that seemed impossible to you before suddenly become possible and even probable. And the sun comes out and you're like, oh, okay. So I've been doing this wrong the entire time. Not because I'm dumb, not because I'm lazy, not because I'm a glutton, but just because I was given the wrong information.
Well, I think a big part of the problem too is there's so much conflicting information when it comes to diet. So like you said, people have been trying and they've probably been trying on these different diets over the years and are feeling exhausted at this point because so many of these diets that quote unquote work are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So I think a good jumping off place, you mentioned the proper human diet a couple times there. Let's talk about that template and we can dive into various aspects as we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. But first, let's touch on, you said something very important. People are frustrated. People have just given up. And there is a thing in animal biology that happens in all mammals of any species, and that's called learned helplessness. If you frustrate an animal enough times, including humans, they just give up. This is well known in the psychological literature. And so this has happened to literally millions of people, Jesse. They just have given up. They're like, screw it. I guess I'm just big boned. I guess I'm just fat. I don't know. But again, I want to reiterate that no. You were just using the wrong template, even if it was endorsed by a very prominent, famous organization or association like the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association, the American Medical Association, Eat Lancet. I could go on and on and on with all these organizations because very often they have other interests as their main interest. Their main interest is not you getting healthy and optimizing your health and realizing your best true health where you feel good and you're happy to get out of bed every day. So yes, your frustration does not mean that you're a failure. It does not mean that there is no answer. It just means you haven't found the proper answer for you yet.
And you touched on something there that brought up another aspect of this for me. It's the fact that you have to actually be doing the research on your own these days and deep diving in to really learn what the proper human diet is. And that also layers on to what I mentioned before, the fact that there is conflicting information. So not only do you have to do the research, you have to sift through conflicting information. So there's a lot of variables against people. We've stated that up front. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes and talk about what this proper human diet is for people.
I have a few basic principles of a proper human diet that I talk about on my YouTube channel and other social media. So I think by definition, a proper human diet. Now, let me just add, Jesse, up front, this is not just from my limited training on nutrition in medical school. That basically taught me nothing useful when it comes to the caring, feeding of just someone out in the wild, which this is our wild, as weird as that may be. That's what this is. Whatever, if you live in an urban, suburban, or even if you're out in the country, that's your wild. That you are still a wild animal, and you are somewhat domesticated, unfortunately. But this is our current wild, and so by definition, based on years of studying the anthropological data, paleoanthropological data, reading text from explorers and researchers from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, and early 1900s, it becomes pretty obvious, these basic principles. And so this is where I've gleaned all this from, not just from reading the latest nutrition research, because you won't find any of this there. So number one, a proper human diet is by definition ancestrally appropriate. And for the average doctor or nutritionist who has not dipped their toe into the anthropological literature, into the paleoanthropological literature, this literally, not only do they not know what it says, they don't even understand how important that really is. And it's super, super important to know the diets that basically brought us, that helped us evolve into this apex species that runs the planet currently, for better or for worse. I know, I understand. But that's very, very important, because if you want to be a cow rancher, you have to know what a proper cow diet is, or you will fail as a cow rancher, right? If you want to raise broccoli, you have to know what a proper broccoli diet is. What do you feed your broccoli? Or you will go bankrupt as a broccoli farmer. And so when you get into animal biology, which that's my undergraduate degree, there's no debate. There's no doubt. We've known for hundreds of years what a proper cow diet is. If you want the cow to be healthy, you feed them this. If you want the cow to be super fatty, which is what the current preference for humans, and I think there's a paleoanthropological reason why we want all of our animals to be fatty and have fatty muscle and fatty liver, which we can get into, you feed them this other diet. And that same exact concept applies to humans as well. You have to know what is the species-specific diet for humans over the last 3.5 million years. Now, we've been on this planet as a species for about 350,000 years. But our ancestors, long before that, were already eating this proper human diet. The next concept is that a proper human diet is nutrient dense. The entire reason you eat food is for nutrition. Now, many of us may eat food out of boredom because of social pressure, family pressure, etc. But the real, true reason, the biological reason that you eat food is to glean nutrition. Amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. And let me say, Jesse, that those are the only essential nutrients they are. We hear lots about polyphenols, we hear lots about fiber, but in reality, those are not essential nutrients. They might be helpful, they maybe. Anytime you say might, you also have to remember that also means might not. If you say may, that also equals may not. So you have to keep that in mind as well when you're talking about a proper human diet. I think that the next principle of a proper human diet is that it is by definition a lower carbohydrate diet. And I think that we see this in modern society with epidemics of type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, and obesity. These people are just eating too many carbohydrates for their personal physiology. Now, some people can tolerate more carbohydrates than others. It's a known concept in evolutionary science that in any population of a species, there's going to be variability. This is how, if something changes, we're not all wiped out immediately. And so some people can tolerate up to 100 total grams of carbohydrates a day and still be very metabolically healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy. Other people need to turn down what I call the carbohydrate intake knob down to 50 total grams a day. Some people need to turn down the knob even more to 20. And for some people like me who fatten very easily and develop prediabetes very easily, I have to keep the carbohydrate intake knob turned down as low as I possibly can, which is a carnivore diet. And there are several other principles of a proper human diet, but I think those are the main caveats. One final one I would add is that a proper human diet is by definition uninflammatory. And so this is where you get into some of that interpersonal variability. Some people may be able to eat kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts a pound a day, and it's wonderful. They have no symptoms. Other people, if they eat one Brussels sprout, they're going to have 3 days of abdominal bloating and gas and abdominal discomfort. And so that variability within the species, which I love to talk about, the normal distribution curve. And you know what that is, Jesse, but just to quickly explain, out of any population of people, there are some people that can eat the hell out of veg, and it's fine. Most people in the population, if they eat too much veg, they're going to have bloating, they're going to have a skin issue, they're going to have joint issues, mental health degradation, they're going to have something. And then some people over on this end of that normal distribution curve need to avoid all the veg. And I don't really have problem with inflammation from vegetables. I have problems with too many carbohydrates from the vegetables. And so you not only have to think about the low carbohydrate, but you have to think about the uninflammatory as well. And with those 4 basic principles of a proper human diet, I think that the vast majority of people, 80%, maybe a little more, can immediately start to turn around the number on the bathroom scale. They can start to immediately reverse their elevated hemoglobin A1C or their elevated triglycerides. They can start to reverse their fatty liver. They can start to lower their blood pressure, and many other health markers immediately start to move back towards the normal range when they honor these principles.
You talked about the difference between people, and I think that's an important concept here. And I assume when you say that, you're talking from a genetic perspective, but I also want to layer on too, there's time of life perspective. So, we're going to go through different phases of life. And as we get older, our metabolism's going to naturally slow down. And also activity level. Somebody who is, out there exercising every day might be able to tolerate more carbohydrates than somebody who is more sedentary. So there's different variables that all mesh together to form this individual situation that you talk about.
Yeah, and there's several layers. I think genetics does play a role. This is greatly overhyped, especially by people who are selling genetic testing. You cannot just check your genetic code and say, aha, I should avoid onions and I should eat more, brassicas. No, that does not work that way. The second layer is epigenetics. And this is where a lot of people get hung up, because what your mom ate when you were in the womb, that matters epigenetically. What you were fed the first few years of your life matters epigenetically. And I think we see this in people on a ketogenic or a carnivore diet. They make wonderful gains in weight loss up to a point. And so even though their weight is not where they want it, all their metabolic markers are perfect, but yet they're holding this excess adipose tissue that they'd love to get rid of. And for many of them, that's their primary goal, right, Jesse? But they're like, I've lost 80 pounds and all my metabolic numbers are beautiful, but I can't lose this last 30, 40, 50 pounds. It's stuck. Now, sometimes it's an undiagnosed medical condition delaying that, but I think in some cases, it's your epigenetics. It's what your mom ate. It's what she fed you when you were very young. And it may even go back another generation, Jesse. So that's why one of the reasons why we need to give ourselves some grace, because in some cases, your epigenetic switches were thrown before you were even conscious. Now, the question then immediately is, can we unflip those epigenetic switches? And I think that we can to some degree, but I think that that you're not able to turn them off nearly as quickly as we'd like. In many cases, I think it takes months or years to calm your body's inflammation down and to calm your body's worry that, oh my God, we're losing fat too fast, right? And so your body will just put on the brakes and not allow any further fat metabolism until your body is satisfied. Okay, I guess everything's okay now. And then it'll say, okay, it's fine to lose a little more fat, because Everybody needs to keep in mind that only in modern times, only in the last 200 years, out of our 3.5 million years of existence on this planet, our ancestors, only in the last 100 or 200 years has it become advantageous to lose fat. Never before in human history was that a good thing. It was always a bad omen if you were losing your body fat. Now, your body, as far as we know, does not know how overweight you are. It doesn't, because that's not something it ever had to contend with in the past, right? And so your body doesn't know if you're holding 10 pounds or 500 pounds of stored fat. It really can't tell as far as we know. Now, that could change with more research. And so, but anytime your body fat percentage is plummeting, as it will on a ketovore, carnivore diet, your body freaks out, because in all of our past, that was a bad thing. Either you were infected with something and couldn't hunt and gather, or you had an injury and you couldn't hunt and gather. Maybe your tribe kicked you out and you're on your own now. Maybe you fell in a hole and you broke your ankle and you can't get out. Always that was a bad thing. Only in the last century or two has it become a good thing to lose quite a bit of stored body fat. And then I think you're absolutely right. Your age in life matters. That's another layer of complexity. So when I was 18, Jesse, I could literally live on chocolate milk, Doritos, and Ding Dongs and could not gain weight. Literally could not gain weight in my teens and 20s. Tried to put on muscle. My body was like, sure, skinny boy. Yeah, keep trying. That's not going to work. But about 32 to 37, my body said, oh, okay, you want to gain some weight? Here we go. And so I think time of life does absolutely matter. And I think back to the carbohydrate knob, the younger you are, the more total carbohydrates you can handle on average. The older you get, you need to probably be turning down that carbohydrate intake knob, or your waistline will suffer because of that. And then finally, exercise activity level is absolutely another layer. When you're younger, this matters less. As you get older, it matters more. And for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, if you want to burn that stored fat, you're probably going to have to increase your activity level, not because exercising will help you burn that fat. The research is very clear in nutrition and medicine that exercise is a terrible method for burning fat, for losing fat. But, when people say they want to lose weight, what do they really mean? They want to lose fat. They don't want to lose muscle. They don't want to lose bone density. They don't want to lose connective tissue. They don't want to lose brain, liver, kidney, heart. They want to lose fat. And so exercise indirectly can help raise your metabolic level and help with that. But it's not going to directly help you lose weight. And then there's probably other layers of complexity that you have to layer on top of this to get what your proper human diet is for this moment in time.
To get a little bit more nuanced into that exercise piece, how do you feel about, I assume you're talking more from, say, like a cardio perspective and trying to, jog or go for a bike ride and burn off calories, in that period of time. But there is a lot of research showing that putting on muscle is a good thing when it comes to losing weight. So can we get into the nuances just to decipher between the two?
Yep. I think that chronic cardio, as my friend Mark Sisson has called it, is probably a uniformly either a bad thing or at least not a good thing. I don't think anybody should be spending an hour on the treadmill, the Stairmaster, jogging for hours. I think that is the health benefits are trivial and the risk of injury is very high. I don't think your time is well spent doing that. I think building muscle and strengthening your bones are excellent signals to your body that we need to be healthier. We need to get healthier. And if that involves burning some fat, that's fine. But especially to the older population, if you're especially over the age of 50, you don't need to be focusing on chronic cardio. You need to be focusing on lifting heavy things, running fast, biking fast, swimming fast, for short intervals of time. I'm a huge fan of high intensity interval training. I think that's probably the way for everybody, because first of all, it doesn't waste a ton of time. Secondly, you can do it for free That's two very big, important things for this country boy with ADHD. I got to be able to do it fast. I got to not spend a lot of money. I got to not have to be put out. I don't want to have to drive to the gym and wait in line for the staff. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And so stuff that you can do at home for free that's going to give you immediate results. I'm a huge fan of that. And so I think that building muscle and building bone and all of the downstream ripple effects that gives your body and your brain, very important, the brain, you're going to improve your mental health and your physical health, but you're also setting yourself up to be that healthy, enviable elderly person one day, because you're going to be elderly. You're either going to be elderly or you're going to be dead. That's your two options. There is no third option currently. Maybe my friend Dr. Sinclair will have a breakthrough moment and discover something. But right now, you're going to get old. And so you either get old and you look great and all your friends are envious and you feel amazing, or you get old and you're in a wheelchair or just permanently on the couch. Those are your two options. And so at some point, if you've lost enough bone strength and you've lost enough muscle mass, you're basically infirm. You're basically an invalid. You're basically there might be a point at which there's no return from that. And so I love when people get active. And what I have found in my years of doing this, both in my private practice and also online, is that very many people, especially if they're very inflamed and very obese, when they start trying to get healthy, exercise is not an option. If you weigh 350 pounds, I don't want you to go to the gym and jog. I also don't want you to try to go in the backyard and run wind sprints. You need to focus 100% of your effort, your motivation, your persistence, and your money on your food. Fix your food, fix your diet. And because at some point, when you've done that well enough, for long enough, the levels of inflammation will go down and your brain will be more motivated to do things and your body will be capable of doing those things. And it's very common for somebody who's just miserable when they start this way of eating. After a few months of this, they're like, you know what I did yesterday? I went for a walk. I haven't done that in years. It's almost like we're hardwired to go outside and play, but not if we're miserable and sick and overweight. Nobody wants to go outside and play in that condition. But when you've healed your metabolism enough and you've improved the health of your body, both mentally and physically, all of a sudden you return to this innate desire to go outside and play. And that's exactly how I talk about it. And I think that's how people should think about it. What do you enjoy doing? What do you want to do? Go do that and do it a little more aggressively each day or each week. Build your muscle, build your bones.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
I know that you've tried. I know that you've really put in the effort, but you were given the wrong information. If you want good health until being very, very, very old, you need to eat this way.